They must be trust yourself.
So, okay, when we compare like American soldiers with Japanese soldiers, I would say that the American soldiers are usually
Okay, both
young
of them are brave,
guys.
very brave. American soldiers, Japanese soldiers, brave, the same. But big difference is Japanese soldiers have self-respect. They feel shame. Always they feel shame.
But against who?
By themselves.
Okay, so is there any link with the emperor or no?
No. Of course, as soldiers, they try to follow on emperor's decision. This is the Yasukuni Shrine is representation.
Right, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, they follow on emperor decision. Why they follow emperor decision? I'm a current person. I don't know where, but at that time, every soldier follow on the emperor decision.
So basically, what is depicted here in this video? This is something that is not totally alien to what today's Japanese people feel.
Okay, and the big difference is about Chinese soldiers and Japanese soldiers. Japanese soldiers, they don't worry about their death. Chinese soldiers, they try to want to be alive. This is big difference.
Right. So where does that? So that is kind of like, okay, I understand that. So American soldiers are brave. I also understand that, but at the same time, what you see is like there is a big disengagement, but from American soldiers who come back, for example, from Vietnam, who feel that actually they've been giving themselves for their country, for honor, to fight for their country, but then the country doesn't really respect them when they come back. They criticize the soldiers and their behavior. I don't believe that there has been such criticism by the Japanese soldiers in relation to their country after the war. Why not?
Oh, okay. You said before war, after war. Japanese people are very strange. Maybe this relation the same. Japanese people change their mind 180 degrees at a certain time period. They discard their past. So after World War II, and those people they change their mindset, spirits. They lost their spirit of Japan.
But they didn't criticize Japan, so they lost maybe the spirit.
This is strange. This strange things is also I feel strange. No criticize. They forget everything.
Kimoto-san, question: why do you think that is?
What?
Why do you think Japanese soldiers never criticized the army, the military, for the wars that they were made to fight and the lives that they were supposed to give, and the seemingly useless lives that have been wasted? So people would go to war with a sense of honor, with a sense of duty, but then realize that their value in this war was actually very limited, and when they came back, there was no word of apology or anything. So why were these soldiers not more critical of the people who led them into this war when they came back?
About waste of the lives, and Japanese before World War II, almost all Japanese believe the Shinto. Therefore, Shinto is some kind of a religion.
Right.
And many Japanese soldiers said to his colleague, 靖国で会いましょう. See you again in 靖国.
Right.
That is many Westerners couldn't understand this kind of concept, but very long time ago, for example, age of the Crusaders in the Middle East, Westerners go to the Middle East for fighting against the Islam. That is a heroic battle. I think the religion defines the mindset of the nation. Therefore, Japanese lives are very wasted in the World War II.
Because of the mix between
religion.
states, so the state, the emperor, and the religion all mixed together.
Yeah.
Create this society where you're from, basically your own identity. So everybody felt part of this identity. So it doesn't matter whether you are a peasant from Nagano or a I don't know, from Tokyo, or it didn't really matter. Basically, they felt that they had a cause. But what happened to that cause after the war? Because the cause was discarded. That didn't lead to criticism. So what did we fight this war for?
About Nagano.
For example, right?
Oh,
so the army was the army, the navy. That was populated with people from all walks of life. And especially like Nagano was a poor prefecture with a lot of poverty. There was not a lot of support from the central government. These guys were recruited, and a lot of them died. They came back, and the ideals, the reason why they fought, and why they felt it was worthwhile to die in Yasukuni, could be easily questioned after the war. But those questions, I don't know, but I'm under the impression that those questions and that criticism never actually arose from the returning soldiers.
So you would like to ask me why Japanese before World War II, Japanese nation have no criticized to the waste of the lives.
Yes, well, actually, especially after. So, okay. Before that, so we saw in this video that one of the explanations that the Americans gave for Japan to be mobilized and to be so fanatic and even risk their own life when going to war was because of the role of the emperor, because he was all overseeing and basically he was the bloodline that connected all the Japanese. And so first of all, that to me, I never considered the emperor to be this much as a powerful figure in Japanese history that basically that people would actually want to give their lives for the emperor, but more for their families and their. So that's for me, that was kind of surprising. But I believe that Uno-san kind of was pointing in different directions. Okay, this could be bewildering, but for many people at that time, this was a reason to go to war. And then the next question is that what you saw, for example, in the United States after the war, and why did we go in this war, and was it really worthwhile? And people heavily criticizing their country and their politicians for actually bringing them to war. We didn't see that in Japan. So there's two questions. Number one is, okay, was the mindset of the people indeed of the soldiers to fight for Japan, but basically Shintoism, the emperor as the leader of the Shinto family, and actually the part that every Japanese person is connected through blood, through his motherland, and therefore it makes sense to him that he needs to give his blood if that is necessary for the country, as you would die for your family, basically. So that's number one. Was that really the idea? And then question number two is, when this turns out to be, in retrospect, that it seems like all these ideas were discarded, but if that is really true, was there not more criticism as to reasons why people went to war in the first place?
What is the second question? You have to say again. What is your second question?
Okay, so when after World War II, things changed drastically. Basically, everything was discarded, and people seem to be going in a different direction, right? But if that is true, why was there not more criticism on the Japanese government, maybe the emperor, or basically the authorities, as to the reasons as to why they had to go to war and lose their sons in a war in a way that was not very protective of their soldiers. Basically, the soldiers were just sacrificed as bullets for their country. What was it really worthwhile that people would take the blood, the lives of their own sons and daughters into their own hands and just sacrifice them like they were flies?
I think several months ago, Edo-san provided one video. Japanese elementary school to have a lunch.
Yes.
Kyushoku.
Yes.
That is Japanese children forced to make harmonize in the society and the group. That gives a very big bias to their thinking.
Right.
Group thinking.
So even though the group moved away from the original ideas that existed pre-war and post-war, the group did not change. So the culture didn't fundamentally change.
Yeah, exactly. Japanese get the fought in the World War II, but Japanese culture, Japanese keep their culture even into the 21st century.
Right. So the mindset changed, the way that people focused their admiration and their patriotism and everything that may have been towards the emperor, the role of Japan in Asia. It changed, and Japan changed direction, but the lives that people lived and what fed the beliefs of these people did not really change. Only the vision was changed, but the social structure maintained. And so that is actually pre-war and post-war that just competed. And you do not criticize because there seemed to be a kind of continuity in Japan, like historical families, the elite of Japan, pre-war, post-war, it kind of continued, but there was no criticism, and basically, and that was that because people are not really interested in what happens at the ranks of the emperor, at the ranks of the politicians, at the ranks of the military leaders. They are more interested in maintaining harmony and being part of that society that is surrounding them in their villages, in their schools, and criticizing the government would basically go against the common sentiment, the common idea, the common understanding of these groups. So people who would return from the war, they would not criticize, because actually criticizing would make other people in their communities uncomfortable.
About 35 years ago, in Melbourne, Australia, I have one special experience. One day I walked in the street in Melbourne. I looked at a car accident. Two cars have an accident and have a crash. And one driver is a woman, young woman, and she take off her car and suddenly said to the what? Oh, but usually in this case, same case in Japan, Japanese usually say "sumimasen."
Oh,
It's a very different attitude for a car accident between the Japanese and Westerner.
right.
That is based on the culture. That is a very big, huge impression for me. Therefore, even if the 35 years ago, I remember this accident.
I can clearly relate to that. I would be exactly like the woman. I sometimes get very, very, very angry in traffic in Japan because people basically, they drive careless. They don't use their rear view mirrors. They just change lanes without watching and endangering the lives of others, like taxi drivers all of a sudden stopping without caring about any other traffic and risking the lives of others. They don't care. They really don't care. It drives me very angry. Sumimasen じゃなくて
Yeah.
You could have killed me.
How about in the Netherlands?
Like
in the
Melbourne.
Car accident.
Oh, no, very aggressive.
Aggressive.
Very aggressive. Yeah. Yeah. No, this is exactly like Australia. Same culture. People get angry because they never think that they are to blame for the accident, right?
Yeah.
Right. So. Yeah, definitely similar. So sumimasen じゃない。sumimasen for you can get a sumimasen in your face.
Yeah.
That's the attitude in the Netherlands. So to maintain harmony, even though people actually almost lost their own lives. People who came back, they almost lost their own lives. Many of them lost their friends. And it turned out that actually so many Japanese soldiers lost their lives. There still that experience was not strong enough for them to say, but wait a minute, why did this happen? And who thought this was a good idea to waste the lives of my friends? That discussion was never raised. The people were never angry, just like in Melbourne, getting out of the car and what. You just killed my son, for example, or you killed my family members by using them as human bullets in a war that we could have never won. Like, who are you to play with the lives of my loved ones? That's directly pointing at people's individual responsibilities as leaders of a country, but that doesn't seem to happen. What is that? Because we allow people to be leaders, but we don't criticize them. Leadership, does it come with responsibility or not?
Japanese leadership is very different from the Westerners. Even if Prime Minister Abe, he should manage his staffs. For example, Mr. Nikai, in a Japanese politician, and Prime Minister Abe should have an average of the opinion. 1 + 1 by 2 average.
Right.
To make a harmony in Japanese Jiminto Liberal Party.
Right. Okay, but that is basically that is more or less an administrative process. It's just a matter of counting the voice, and it's up to the individuals to kind of persuade. But who leads? Who comes up with the ideas? Who's responsible ultimately of making these decisions? Is the leader just the vessel who communicates what the majority was thinking, or is the leader who's actually inspires and drives the discussion and guides the country in a certain direction? If you look at leaders like Roosevelt, if you look at leaders like Churchill, they were not simply voicing the majority of their cabinets. No, they were actually creating the narrative, inspiring, directing, and bringing people into a certain direction. And with that role came a lot of responsibility. Who took responsibility for what happened in Japan? And especially, I mean, if not for the people in the countries that they occupied, but for their own people. I mean, basically every family entrusted the lives of their sons and daughters into the hands of these leaders. In my book, they screwed up that time, but nobody got angry. As a foreigner, I don't understand that.
I think in Japan, Japanese organization has two type of leaders. One leader is official leader. Second leader is shadow leader. This is explained about famous book Kikuto Katana. Japanese has official leader is some kind of a symbol, but we should communicate with a shadow leader. Usually, foreigners couldn't understand who is a shadow leader.
Right. But the Japanese could. So what happened to the shadow leaders in Japan? I mean, if they were the ones who, I would say that in the case of Japan, the shadow leaders were the military leaders, who were member of parliament, who were basically having powerful positions, who were driving the decisions that the politicians were making. So the non-military leaders. But what happened with the military leaders? How were they seen by the people of Japan, especially in retrospect? Was there criticism or not?
In Japanese education has no debate type of the lectures. That is a issue of the Japanese education.
Right. Well, next week we'll see the rest of this movie, and we will also see part of the Tokyo trials, and we learned that actually, and I think it was this video, it may have been another video, but they have a retrospect, and it turns out that people who were convicted under the Tokyo trials, sometimes they came back as politicians and regained powerful positions in government. And I think, what? How is that possible?
How is it possible?
How is it possible that these people were driving the war effort of Japan? They were taking the lives of their own sons into their own hands, and there was no criticism, even what's more, they actually came back and became and regained their status as leaders as if nothing had happened. I don't understand that.
Okay. 4 or 5 years ago, Edo-san gave us debate lectures in Uno School. That occasion, it's very difficult for me to have a rebuttal and cross-examination.
I'm not cross-examining. I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand why certain things. What is the cultural background behind this attitude? Because it is something that Western observers do not understand. So next week there will be a remainder of this video. It takes a long time. It's very interesting, and I think there is a lot of why this video is particularly interesting is because it shows an outsider perspective on Japan, which is not positive. And I could easily see that there is a potential of misinterpretation on the American side, and probably from the Japanese perspective, from your perspective. But still, I mean, there are also things that may be correct. But then I ask myself the question, why? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to your next lecture.
Okay.
You finished today?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Yano, do you want to say something?
I'm fine. Thank you.
You're fine? Okay. So
Yeah, let's wish our corona patient a swift recovery.
yeah, I expect Takashi.
Well, we don't know whether he has corona, but Takashi-san.
Takashi will be back next week. Yeah, I hope. Okay, thank you very much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
continue next week.
By the way, you